What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're reviewing Chad Reuter's brand new 7-round mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You guys know how to do the deal. We're going to be reviewing every single pick in this, so let's not waste any time. Blow my face to my board. It's always changing, but you guys can be checking out some of the beautiful, and it take a lot of time too, positional rankings that just dropped, including the top 35 interior offensive linemen. Yes, you heard that right. 35. So check that out. Let's get right into this. Let's have a great time. Below the board is all the great ways to get involved in the community, as well as take advantage of our 2 sponsors, which is going to include Olipop, which is going to keep me alive this episode, as well as UnderDog Fantasy. So let's get into it. Starting out with the number 1 pick, we know it's going to be Caleb Williams. I mean, it is what it is. Let's not even waste any time with this. That's the pick. We're all going to get 1 pick right this draft. That's at least a plus. But at number 2, we got Jayden Daniels. Again, it's going to be a QB at 2. The question is who? And or technically it's whom, but the Commanders going Jayden Daniels makes the most sense based on, his instant fit with the system as well as the highest floor. The inconsistencies with Jayden Daniels the inconsistencies with Drake Maye make it to where Jayden Daniels is a little bit more of a projectable prospect if you don't fully trust your quarterback development. And Jayden's athleticism is incredible, and it's able to make up for the fact he can't read over the middle. So I'm perfectly fine with Jayden at number 2. At number 3, we have Drake Maye to the Patriots. The Patriots are willing to move off this pick, which shows that they have not found their guy. If you know your guy is here and it's a quarterback, and Drake Maye seems to be that, then you would not have the pick for sale. Essentially, you'd take some offers, sure, but it wouldn't be for sale. Washington's already said, hey, we have our guy. We're not moving off 2. New England said we're willing to move out. So this is where I think that we might end up seeing a trade, because I also think the Patriots have a lot more issues, and there are quarterbacks in the future drafts that, the Patriots, with a new regime, we can't rely on them to be as consistently competitive as they were under Bill Belichick. So we'll see what happens there. But, Carson Beck next year with some really talented weapons around him would not be a bad choice. The Giants then trade up to 4 to select J.J. McCarthy. I think J.J. would be the best long-term option for the Giants. But, people are not very patient. And with so many, I guess it's a catch-22. If the Giants move up to 4, the Cardinals still are in striking range of getting a player that they want. I've already seen what happens with the Cardinals pick, but let's just say I'm not a fan of that part, but I'm a fan of the idea of Arizona wants Malik Nabers, or maybe LA is set on Malik Nabers. You can still get some extra draft capital and get the guy that you want. But the Giants move up and get JJ McCarthy. It's a catch-22 because JJ kind of buys more time, but it also is potentially a job killer if he does not actually perform well. So it's intriguing. I think JJ is an upgrade regardless, but the Giants still need a number 1 weapon, but we have 7 rounds to break that down. Pick number 5, the Chargers go Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's the best move for the Chargers. If they end up getting Malik Nabers, not a bad one either. The Cardinals end up moving back and getting Rome Odunze. This is what I have a problem with. I just don't think Rome Odunze is the receiver for the Cardinals. I think the role that he suffices is, a little bit overlapping with what Michael Wilson can do if Michael Wilson develops. Malik Nabers is something that is built for this offense, and something the offense doesn't really have at the moment since losing Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore. Doesn't make very much sense for moving back only 2 spots, right? Like, if you end up moving back to 11 and then, you move up to select Rome, that makes more sense. But Malik Nabers is here. You got to make sure that you get the guy who's the best for your offense. So, not a fan of that at all. Pick number 7, the Titans go Joe Alt. It's the shoe-in pick to save us time. Let's not talk about that too much. The Falcons then go Quinion Mitchell at 8. If they're going to go to corner, I think they're going to go Terrion Arnold. And my hot take is this is Terrion Arnold. When you look at the coaching staff that the Falcons have, the former DC, or the DC, excuse me, formerly coached Trent McDuffie there at Washington. And then one of the defensive assistants, I think he might be the DB's coach. He ended up being the DC over at Illinois for Devin Witherspoon. So, there's a lot of comfortability with that very similar mold of that slot/boundary hybrid who is extremely high IQ and loves to hit. So I think that would be their move, but, I do think it's very intriguing. I wouldn't go Quinion Mitchell over Malik Nabers. Obviously, my board's pretty indicative of that. So, but I still think Quinion Mitchell's a great product. He's my number 7 player in the class, and, I'm pretty proud of that. Pick number 9, the Colts go Brock Bowers via trade up. Malik Neighbors is here. I support the move up for Indy, but I would go Malik Neighbors. Obviously, I mean, I'm going to continue saying that until Malik Neighbors gets picked, which is going to be shockingly low. But the Colts end up trading up. I think the Bears should stick and pick with Malik Neighbors personally. But Brock Bowers is an elite weapon. He is someone who I think is generational. You do not find players like this very often. So even though we can disagree with the value and all that, I still think that the Colts getting Brock Bowers is a great move. And I'm not too ashamed of the move up. If Rome Odunze were on the board versus Malik Neighbors, I think this would be a little bit more palatable, though. Pick number 10, the Jets go J.C. Latham, who I think would start at guard early on over Simpson, and then end up moving to tackle eventually, because both of the tackles are on one-year deals. I don't think this is out of the question, because I think he actually might end up being a pure guard, but this is one hell of a mentor group for him. I'd trade back from the spot in a heartbeat. Malik Neighbors is still on the board, and Terrion Arnold's also on the board, and I think there is a drop-off noticeably after those two. But essentially, the Jets could get extra value and still get J.C. Latham or Tali Fuaga. I think the Jets are one of the best teams to trade back if one of the more valuable weapons is available at that spot. The Vikings ended up taking Bo Nix at 11. I know Vikings fans are going to get really grouchy about this, and, understandably so. I think Bo Nix, though, is a very good quarterback. I do think that, it's a little bit early for my taste. Granted, I still think it's early for Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye to go at 2 and 3. But that's my thing. I'm not a huge quarterback fan this draft. But I do think I think Bo Nix is worth a first-round pick. And if the Vikings need to secure their guy, they need to secure their guy. Bo Nix will operate this offense well. He most likely will deliver this team to the playoffs, if not put them on a good run. He's a good game manager that's gotten better every single year of his career, and seeing a positive positive projection every single year usually tends to work out in the NFL. But, obviously it's a little disappointing for Vikings fans that want to move up for Drake Maye. Pick 12, the Broncos go Dallas Turner. Another spot where I think they should move back, get some extra draft capital. But, Dallas Turner is one of the best defenders in the class, if not the best. He's up there with Terrion Arnold for me. The Broncos, if you want to end up just getting really good pieces, going best player available, you can't fully fault them for that. The Raiders then go Malik Neighbors at 13. Of course, he should have went before. I don't need to say that again. That's why I have my board below my face, so you know where I think players should go. But Malik, if the Raiders end up getting him, ridiculous value for legitimately obvious reasons. Saints then go Tali Fuaga. Ramchick has no cartilage in his knee. You're going to be starting him at right tackle. My only issue is I do have a hot take that the top 2 right tackles especially are better at guard and will probably end up being guards unless the Saints force this pick. I think Olu Fashanu is a better option, but Tali Fuaga is not a bad one. Then we got Byron Murphy via that Bears trade back. I'm not against this. Byron Murphy is a fantastic player. I'd prefer Jared Verse here, but Byron Murphy, this isn't the best defensive interior class, and to be fair, it's not a great edge class either. But Byron Murphy is a fantastic player. He's one of those players where when you analyze the top selections for the draft, you do see that a D tackle goes higher than what we probably try to project. And, whether it's a Jalen Carter, even with potentially killing somebody, that's what the notion was. He still went at 9, right? And, you even see Jordan Davis, he went at 13. So they do go high. And Byron Murphy is a really good player who's 20 years old. Could end up going much higher than this come this week, this Thursday. Pick number 16, the Eagles go Verse. I think that's a great move for Seattle. I don't know about Philly moving up for Verse because, potentially Latu might be there, but other teams will probably want a top-end edge rusher. This is not the worst thing in the world by any stretch. This team, after this year, because you got to remember how he was talking about how you want to develop and, play the long game, not just the short. You are not going to have Josh Sweat. You're essentially going to have Huff and Nolan Smith. BG's probably going to be on. Sweat's going to be gone. You're going to want to have an extra edge rusher in that rotation. Jared Verse would be great for that. Pick number 17, the Jaguars go Terrion Arnold. Of course, the Eagles, the best pick you could have is Terrion Arnold. But, it is what it is. Jaguars get Terrion Arnold here. He's a fantastic player. That's the best pick for the Jaguars you can ask for. The Bengals then go Brian Thomas Jr. With the potential exit of T. Higgins at probably the trade deadline if he doesn't want to sign a deal. We'll see what happens, but they do need to have a contingency plan in place. Brian Thomas is a good player for that. Chiefs end up moving up for Xavier Worthy. Y'all know how dumb that is. Y'all already know. 165-pound player. I didn't think that he was that great. I mean, he's a solid player, but to move up for him, he's not that game-breaking. Who cares about 4.21 speed? At the end of the day, if you're 4.3, you're going to be challenging people vertically. Like 4.21 is not always empirical, so it's sometimes very difficult to make that actually be the difference maker on the field. And a lot of times it's route running and, making the defender second guess himself and lose a couple steps. That's what gains separation a little bit more than just running fast in a straight line. But pick number 20, Steelers go Troy Fautanu. That's a dream pick for the Steelers because worst case scenario, you do have a longer term guard option, but you do have a really high upside tackle who's great on the move and great in the run game. I think this would be arguably the best pick for the Steelers, except Fautanu, who does go next to the Dolphins. But if the Dolphins are staring Fautanu in the face, you take him. 10 out of 10, you take him. Pick number 22, Seattle trades back and gets Graham Barton, center/guard/tackle out of Duke. And yes, he was recruited as a center. He played left tackle. He's also played reps at guard. He is that versatile. I ended up bringing out a top 20 tackles video and top 35 interior offensive line video, where I ended up breaking him down more in depth, but the Seahawks are one of my dream fits for him. I just think that this is a pretty good interior offensive line class with some good sleepers. I don't think that the Seahawks need to spend it on Graham Barton, who is around 60 on my board. Vikings then go Laiatu Latu. At 23, that's great value. You're going to have a really nice rotation of edge rushers there, so not going to be too grouchy about that. At 24, the Cowboys go Junior Colson. So I think that Edgerrin Cooper is the best linebacker in the class. I restudied him yesterday again, and just started watching him more so from a relaxed position rather than being a micromanager. And when you look at it big picture wise, this is very similar to Brian Thomas. You see how dynamic they are and how much of a difference maker they could be. Junior Colson, I rewatched him as well, and he's a solid linebacker, but I don't think he's worth pick 24. When you have Eric Kendricks on the roster, you should take the highest ceiling guy, and to me, that would be Edgerrin Cooper. But, of course, you do have left tackles, left guards, and centers available at 24. That might be a little bit more valuable, but you brought in a ton of linebackers as well in top 30 visits, certainly on your radar. Niners then go Kool-Aid McKinstry via a trade up with the Packers. Cooper DeJean's on the board. I doubt the Packers would pass up on that, but McKinstry is a solid option for the Niners. You're essentially taking him away from both the Buccaneers as well as your in-division rival in the Cardinals. Buccaneers then go Chop Robinson. I've been making this claim for a while. I don't think this is a good move at all for Tampa. If you're trying to win now, Chop Robinson is not your guy. He's a DPR who's still developing and designated pass rusher. So essentially, he's not going to be there for rundowns, and this team needs somebody who can be on the field every single play if possible, and Chop Robinson sure as hell is not that. The Cardinals end up taking Cooper DeJean, so they lose out on McKinstry, get Cooper DeJean. His versatility, he is not a slot. People stop saying that he's a slot. He does not have very smooth hips. It's not that great. He's not going to be able to cover very shifty guys. There's much better players in this class for that. He should be a boundary corner or a safety to use his range. And, that would be perfectly fine here in Arizona. I just feel bad for Green Bay. But the Bills end up going Marshawn Kneeland, friend of the show. Feel free to go watch that interview. It was part of one of the mocks as well. Marshawn Kneeland's a great guy. I think if he ends up in Buffalo, that'd be very exciting to see. I do think this is a very underrated need for the Bills, is going edge rusher, and Marshawn has that size, about 270, and has that tenacity to make it work. So he's a good player and probably will be ending up going in the first round. Lions end up getting a Detroit native. Thank you for pointing that out. In Darius Robinson in Detroit. So I do think that one of these two guys, Kneeland or Robinson, will be the player for them. But they brought in a lot of corners on top 30 visits. Certainly going to be on their radar here. Ravens then go Tyler Guyton. I totally agree with this because Failele, not great at all. Guyton could be a much better day one starter, and with the Ravens being able to have a little bit extra mobility, Tyler Guyton might be able to make more of his skill set. Packers then have moved back for Roger Rosengarten. I really love Roger Rosengarten, but I am not going to be a big fan of Green Bay missing out on Cooper DeJean for Roger Rosengarten. Like, simply put, you got Zach Tom there, who's already playing well, and you're going to have to sit him probably or kick him into guard when you just lost out on 2 starting caliber corners. Very, very concerning to me. Rams end up moving back with the Chiefs and end up selecting Nate Wiggins. So great move for the Rams, but it will be an offensive player according to what's his name? Peter Schrager. Big fan of Pete, but slipped up right there. Round number 2, let's get to it. So at number 33 overall, the Raiders move up to select Michael Penix. I think that the Rams would be, if you're moving back once, you're probably going to be even in the mood to move back again. I don't know why the Raiders would trade up to the beginning of the second. Just doesn't make sense to trade up for Michael Penix at this point when you don't get that 5th round or 5th year extension. So, not a huge fan of that for them, but Carolina amassing picks is a good move for them. Patriots end up going Amarius Mims. So, if he's there, that's a great move. Cardinals getting Johnny Newton. I think he's going to go significantly earlier than this. I think they should have taken him at 27. Commanders going Jordan Morgan. He's a very versatile offensive line piece. The Commanders need a lot of help there. Chargers go Blake Corum. Way too early, but you never know. Sometimes the personal heartstrings are being strung, and we might see Harbaugh get a little jumpy on the first running back off the board. The Titans, hello. Thanks, Lad McConkey. The Titans end up going Lad McConkey. They're at 38. I think they should be going a linebacker hardcore here, and especially Edgerrin Cooper. You might as well use that because he also works as a pass rusher. Pick number 39, the Panthers go Max Melton. Max is a phenomenal corner, and this team does need to get extra corner help. Dane Jackson should not be a starter. Pick number 40, the Commanders go Jayden Hicks. Nice developmental safety, but it's another team that needs extra tackle help. I would be just pounding the table for extra tackles or edge rushers. Green Bay goes after a very young and athletic linebacker in Trevin Wallace. It's early for me, but that's perfectly fine. It's a team that doesn't have that many needs. Pick number 42, the Texans go Cam Hart. Way too early, and I don't know why these dumbass things keep popping up, but way too early for me. In my opinion, I'm just not really a huge fan of the Texans needing to reach on a corner, and I don't think Cam Hart, I think he would end up working out fine, but it's just a bit early. You could have gotten better value. Falcons then go Adiza Isaac. Did not test too well. He's a smart edge rusher. If you end up getting this out of the first 2 rounds, I would feel a little underwhelmed. Pick number 44, the Panthers go Jalen Polk. Potentially a big riser. Peter Schrager put him at the end of his round number 1, but, I think that, when you end up having guys like Keon Coleman on the board, Johnny Wilson even, Jalen Polk's a little bit more underwhelming of a talent. Pick number 45, the New Orleans Saints go Tez Walker. He's a big dude who's fast. That's awesome. He does have drop issues, though. I think you could have waited to the 3rd round easily. Of course, the Bears end up taking A.D. Mitchell at pick 46 via that trade back. Y'all know he's like a top 15 player for me. Where's he at now? I dropped him a little bit because personality concerns, and he did take off some reps. He's at 16 on my board at the moment. He fell because of his personality concerns, essentially. The Bears end up doing that. That's an absolute masterclass. Cooper Beebe ends up going to the Cardinals at 47. He is top 30 on my board and my number 2 interior offensive lineman in the draft. Pick number 48, the Jaguars go Braden Fisk. Defensive interior is a position they are looking at even in the first round. Fisk has some really good reps of being able to just completely block shed very, very quickly. I just don't really see him being an every down starter, which at 48, I still think wide receiver should be the focus. Bengals then go Patrick Paul. He didn't end up being in my top 20 tackles. I just wasn't very wowed by him. But, power to him. I hope he proves me wrong. Seahawks end up getting Mason Smith here via that trade back. It is one of my dream spots for Mason Smith to go. Like, him learning from Leonard Williams would be incredible. He has so much untapped potential. Steelers end up going Jackson Powers Johnson at 51. That's as good as we could ask for. He's at number 38 on my board, and he's my number 1 center on my board. Pick number 52, the Rams go Michael Hall Jr. I love that explosive. I think he's a little too inconsistent, but his high-level play worth taking at 52. Eagles then get Zach Zinter at 53. This is some Chad Reuter bullshit. It is what it is. He obviously should not be taken in this range. Even his pure play is not necessarily worth pick 53. Like, even at his highest levels, he doesn't play that well. He's a fun player to watch, and he has a lot of pop to his arm. He's certainly good as a developmental player, but taking him at 53 for the Eagles, like, go Caden Wallace. He was a right tackle from Penn State who should be kicking into right guard. Like, I'm telling you right now, that is the best move for them. Or go Hunter Norzod. Like, there's better Big Ten interior offensive linemen than Zach Zinter. Of course, feel free to go check out the top 35 interior offensive lineman video for that. Edgerrin Cooper goes to the Browns at 54. Thank you, DJ, for having that jump scare. But Edgerrin Cooper, obviously, I've already talked about him plenty. The Browns will be blessed to have him on the team. Dolphins go Jatavian Sanders. A little bit early for me, but he's not a bad tight end at all. I don't think I would really grade this poorly. I just want the Dolphins to get some extra help maybe on that defensive line. Jonathan Brooks goes to the Cowboys. That's perfectly fine for me. You know, he's a good running back, and you know the Cowboys are looking to add to their running back core. Y'all know how much I love Deuce Vaughn. Kamari Lassiter goes to the Buccaneers at 57. He ran 4.65, but his instincts have improved so much. You know, he is someone who's very efficient with his steps. Might be a really good steal. Packers then go Javon Bullard at 58. I mean, you're essentially just having to cover your ass for losing out on Cooper DeJean. I'm not a huge fan of that. Brandon Coleman then goes to the Texans at 59. As much as I have loved Brandon Coleman, one, I don't think he's an offensive guard. I think his actual talent is being a true left tackle, and I don't think he starts early on in the NFL. So there's a lot of untapped potential with Brandon Coleman, but definitely not in the second round. So the Texans are finally losing a mock draft, which is entertaining because they usually kick some ass in it. Bills end up getting Roman Wilson. So at 60, Roman Wilson brings a level of dynamicism that they kind of already have in Khalil Shakir. Like, not really a fan of the value that Roman would add. I kind of feel like we're shortchanging Roman and the rest of us as fans from being able to see the max potential of him. Detroit Lions go Ennis Rakestraw at 61. Fantastic value. Obviously, he's a top 15 player on my board. Ravens go Jalen Wright, home run hitter. It feels like essentially they're just replacing Justice Hill, so not going to be fully against it, but you know I think they can do better. Niners go Ricky Pearsall at 63. You might as well. You're getting a really talented receiver in a very shaky future for the receiving core. That's good at risk management. Then the Rams select Kingsley Suamataia. You'll give him a year to develop, so this is actually one of my favorite spots for them to favorite spots for Kingsley to actually end up that I didn't really think about too much. Then we are here in round 3. We got Ben Sinnott, of course, because Chad Reuter has to go Ben Sinnott for the Panthers. I've talked about that ad nauseum at this point. Mikey Sainer still to the Cardinals is awesome. This dude has so much energy. He's going to be the Chauncey there for Gannon, so I'm a big fan of that. Pick number 67, we have the Commanders going Xavier Leggett. Should have went a lot earlier, but we'll leave it on the table right there because even though I have my reservations about Xavier Leggett, the fact that he doesn't like to block at all, you know, this is still incredible value for him. Like, y'all know, I have my receiver video out. I technically made 2 of them, so y'all know my thoughts on him. But when looking at, like, where is he at on my board? I'm forgetting where I have Xavier Leggett. He's at 63. Like, this is still, especially for the talent he could bring to the table, really good value. Patriots then go TJ Tampa. I'm just not the biggest TJ Tampa guy, but you know, it's never a bad thing to get extra corners. Chargers go Zach Frazier, who ended up being my interior offensive lineman number 11, factoring in the tackles. So he kind of was more so like 6. Really solid player, broke his leg, RIP to that. But he's aggressive. I love the feistiness. The high-level reps are there. Just with a lot of these interior offensive linemen, needs to not lean forward as much. Giants then go Troy Franklin at 70. Even my hatred for Troy Franklin doesn't really think that this is a bad pick. I don't hate Troy. I think he's a fantastic receiver. Just my one issue is how he handled the gauntlet drill. And, you know, I haven't been able to see how translatable that is to the NFL, but essentially it showed poor either confidence or preparation. Both of those are big red flags in my book. Cardinals getting Trey Benson at 71 is fantastic value. You know, you're getting a pure difference maker on a 4-year contract. Jets end up getting Tyke Smith at 72. He's a fun player to watch. He's dynamic. He's better than Javon Bullard, in my opinion. The Lions going Mason McCormick. He was my number 35 interior offensive lineman. I think he's the most overrated player in the class, but, you know, he just doesn't have any form of respect for the mechanics of playing actual offensive line. I think people just get lost in the hype so to speak, of looking at an old school like Mauler type. And, it's fun. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be able to do that in the NFL. That's why Trevor Penning failed. Pick number 74, Malachi Corley goes to the Falcons. He's miniature Rashee Rice. I think this is a good developmental piece for the Falcons. The problem is you have to trust that you can put Darnell Mooney on the boundary because Malachi Corley is not a boundary receiver. So I'm excited to see if they can make that happen, but not necessarily confident in it. Pick 75, the Bears actually ended up trading. So the Bears sent 9 and 75 for 15, and I think it was 54. Interesting. But the Colts end up getting Jerry Jones. I don't think a slot corner is going to be what you should be looking for. You got Kenny Moore there. If you want to go after somebody who's going to be a little bit more higher RAS, like I'd be going Andrew Phillips if you want someone who has potential to play slot after Kenny Moore's gone, but can play boundary. Like Andrew Phillips, go for it, man. I mean, that guy's a fantastic player. He's number 9 on my board, but he fits the Colts. He's just not really a big guy, but you already have some big enforcers in your corner core. Broncos end up selecting Spencer Rattler. I just have a weird feeling Spencer's going to go earlier, but Raiders continue winning in this mock by going Andrew Phillips at 77. Already just highlighted him. Commanders go Cade Stover at 78. Not a bad pick. Former edge rusher turned tight end. Not a bad guy at all. Just, a little bit uninspiring, but the Commanders do need to go after a tight end. Falcons go Chris Jenkins at 79. I think that's fantastic value. And here's your ASMR of the day because your boy needs to drink. That was actually I should get a job in ASMR, but maybe if I end up sucking in this draft cycle, we'll just switch to ASMR. Might end up getting even more views, so that might be good. But the Falcons go Chris Jenkins here. You're basically doing risk management for getting a contingency plan at defensive interior with a really good value. Bengals then go Peyton Wilson at 80. The injury issues aside, Peyton Wilson's a talented linebacker, and the Bengals should have some extra rotation in there. Pick 81, the Seahawks. Well, to be fair, have the Bengals gone after an offensive tackle? Oh, they went after Patrick Paul. Let's not even talk about that. I kind of feel bad for the Bengals, but as a Steelers fan, I kind of smile at the same time. Seahawks go Cam Kitchens. They do love their safeties. They do. Cam Kitchens just was very, very unimpressive this year, and especially at the Combine in the offseason, he did not do well, but the ceiling is there. Colts end up going Johnny Wilson, who played, I don't know if I think he might have been too young to play against Michael Pittman while he was at Calabasas, and Michael was over at Oaks Christian, but Johnny Wilson's one of my favorite players in the draft. If I'm not mistaken, is he number 32 or 33? Number 32 on my board. So big fan of his game. I have a receiver video out, which you can see a little bit more in depth on that. The Rams go Austin Booker at 83. Feels like a Rams thing to do, just to go after a really solid player that maybe shouldn't be taken that early, but he's a fantastic edge rusher when it comes to his ceiling. The problem is it's too inconsistent, and he's really light at 240, did not test well. Should be someone who you target on day 3, absolutely, because we've seen through the Senior Bowl that he can make it work, but the question is, can he make it work consistently in the NFL? He couldn't make it work consistently in college, so I do have my reservations about that. Steelers go Keon Coleman. I'd love for this to happen. I just doubt that Keon slips this far. There is a stigma on receivers that are not elite separators and primarily like to use their aggressive catch ability. It's understandable, but I think this will work really well for the Steelers, and I'm kind of praying it happens because, last year in the 3rd round, we had Darnell Washington slip to us, and maybe Keon Coleman can do the same. Cleveland Browns go Karan Amagaji. It's probably my favorite fit for Karan, come to think of it. You get to develop him for a full year, and you can see if he's actually worth something. But torn quad ended off his off season, which really sucks, but we'll see what happens when he gets to the NFL. Texans go Theo Johnson here. Theo Johnson's a really solid tight end. I think he gets a short end of the stick because Drew Allar was kind of garbo, but Texans definitely need a contingency plan for backup tight end as well, but they do have some good rotational guys in there, so I wouldn't be saying this is a need, but the value is there for me. Cowboys then go Tanner Bortolini. He's my number 23 interior offensive lineman. Wasn't the biggest fan of his game, but he does have some really nice high-level reps. The problem with him comes down to his anchor. Not a fan of that. He gets driven back quite easily. At pick 88, the Green Bay Packers go Brandon Dorless. This is solid value for Brandon. The problem is at 290, he's such a tweener and he's played edge reps, defensive interior. Like, I don't know what role is actually best for him. So he's more of the enigma in this draft. I think the Packers are a good spot with so many roles that technically he have already been filled for him to, be able to choose what's best for him and develop with some really good talent around him. Pick 89, the Buccaneers go Layden Robinson. A bit early for me. I like Layden Robinson more than I ever thought I would, but the Buccaneers need a day one impact. Layden Robinson sure as hell is not that. Cardinals then go Jaylen Hunt at pick 90, former safety, which I love. I love the fact that we get to see some love for Jaylen Hunt. But, going from HCU, it's a bit early, but still fun to see. I love to get the highlights, players like that. Packers go Nehemiah Pritchett at 91, 190 pounds, not too shabby, tested out well. He's been, consistently a third rounder, fringe day two guy for the past 2 or 3 years. So it's nice to get to see some a little bit of love, but again, they wouldn't have to take this pick if they ended up going Cooper DeJean earlier. And I feel like you could end up targeting a really solid value offensive tackle / lineman here at 91, because that's what the Packers more so do, is draft the defenders early and draft the offensive lineman later. Pick 92, Buccaneers go Marshawn Lloyd. If he ends up not fumbling, he's probably the best back in this class. Problem is, he fumbles a little too much. Cole Bishop goes to the Ravens at 93, one of my favorite safeties in the class. He actually might end up being my safety number 1. Pick number 94, Packers go Christian Haynes, interior offensive lineman out of Connecticut. That's another pick I could totally see the Packers doing. His anchor is just god-awful, man. Even in the run game, he gets pushed off his line. I really wish he had a better anchor and re-anchor, because it's just, I want so much for him. His actual play is phenomenal. Just cannot hold his ground. And that scares the shit out of me. So praying for Christian Haynes. Pick 95 for the Chiefs, Will Shipley out of Clemson. He's a fun, dynamic back. I think he'd complement that running back core really damn well. He's also a good receiving back. Pacheco and Shipley could be a really nice dynamic duo for the future. Mo Kamara goes to the Jaguars. He's a top 64 player on my board. Not going to be mad at that at all. He's just 25 years old. So he's a little bit on the older side. And that's okay, because the NFL, not many guys last for much longer than their first contract anyways. And Mo Kamara is a day one impact. Pick 97, the Bengals go Christian Boyd. That feels like a Bengals pick. They need defensive interior, and he's a fun developmental guy. Steelers then go Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at 98. I'm not going to shame this too much. It's pretty much a top 100 pick, but barely, for a player who will probably not get any reps this year, which, it's a little bit of a bummer. But at the same time, we are also seeing Cole Holcomb come off of a leg fracture, and Jeremiah Trotter is a smart player. He just is a little unathletic, and he's small, and he's short. There's, measurable wise, not great, but in the mind, he does have some really positive traits. I'd still want the Steelers to go after, what would I do? Corner would be great, but I'd probably be trying to target a defensive back at this point, but Jeremiah Trotter is not a bad pick. The Rams end up going Cedric Gray. This is proper value for the Rams, like to look at linebackers, so it is a potential likely pick. Then the Commanders go Cedric Johnson. He tested out well for 265, but I just don't think he's worth a top 100 pick, and I used to be one of his biggest fanboys, so it is what it is. Panthers then end up going to Devondre Sweat at 101, brother of Josh Sweat. He ended up saying that, hey, my party days are behind me. I used to do a lot of drugs, yada, yada. And 3 weeks before the draft, he gets caught DWI. He's high. And, some people say, oh, that's not a big deal. The bottom line isn't the fact that he was DWI. No one even really fully cares about that to that degree. It's the fact that he lied. And he's still doing drugs. He still is a massive individual. Apparently he's 385 at the Senior Bowl. He is a man of size who has proven to not be very honest, which sucks because I want the best for Devondre Sweat, but it really comes down to the lying, and I guess maybe that's just more of my character. I take people at their face value for what they say. Once your word means nothing to me, you essentially mean nothing to me. I'm not a fan of liars, so maybe that's why. I could see the reason for Devondre falling, but at 101, you can't get many players with the actual play upside of Devondre. I just hope that, I'm just praying to God that we could go back to him 4 weeks ago and see him for the massive individual with extremely high upside that he is. Pick 102, the Eagles go Tyler Nubin. does not make very much sense to me. I know it's like, for most people, that's going to be great value for Newbin. Did not test well. He reacts slow to the run game. After he's on the move, sure, his play is good. But in the NFL, I think it's a little too fast for him. And the Eagles have 3 safeties on contract for over a year. Unless you're going to be cutting some dudes, which I think Reed is going to get an extra contract. I think he's going to get an extension. He already did, but he's going to get another one because how he doesn't let good draft picks fall out of the organization. I just don't see a role for Newbin in the future. Pick 103, we got the Patriots going Rook. Rook is a top 50 player on my board. I'm pretty sure. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, where did I put him? He's a top 64 player on my board. He's somewhere in here. You can see it, even though, he's 46. So he's top 50. So obviously a great pick. And he has edge flexibility. DTD, Dadrian Taylor Demerson goes to the Cardinals. I love seeing some Texas Tech love. And, he's a fun safety and could definitely develop with Budda Baker there. 105, we got the Chargers going Chris Abrams-Drain. He's a flexible slot/boundary piece. I would love to see how Harbaugh would use him, essentially like Mikey Samer still. Braylon Trice goes to the Titans at 106. I don't think he should fall that far, even though I had my own little slight issues with Braylon for dropping 30 pounds. Even at 245, I'd take him in the 3rd round. Pick number 107, the Giants go Braylon Allen. I don't think the Giants have an offense built well enough for Braylon Allen. I don't think the offensive line is solid enough. And, I don't trust Braylon Allen this early on in his career to be able to hold up for J.J. McCarthy the whole time while J.J. continues to develop. There's just not enough weapons on this team for me to feel comfortable with that move. So a little bit worried right there for him. Vikings then go Cam Little at 108. Just do UDFA for kickers, man, or go check them out at the UFL. No reason to spend this high of a pick on one. 109, the Falcons go Michael Pratt. Excellent value. Fun guy that I got to meet there in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl. He's a solid high-floor quarterback. He ended up whooping SMU's ass plenty of times. We finally got him at the end, though, so shout out to SMU. Chargers go Satoa Laumea. He should not be listed as a tackle. He is going to be a pure guard. He has the worst tackle tape I have ever seen from a player in terms of the deer in headlights look. It's him and Brandon Coleman who have deer in headlights looks. And but his tape is translatable very, very well to guard. So I don't like the fact that, knowing this designation, it was made with the intention of him being the future right tackle, which he should not be. 5-year starter, though. So he has a lot of reps under his belt, but he should be a guard. Pick number 111, the Jets go Jermaine Burton. The only issue with him is his personality. He dropped down in terms of his route running and everything on my board because of how consistently he played with low effort. It's like, I can't just keep him high because he's an absolute nightmare in the locker room. I mean, the dude just does not try. And it sucks because he's a top 32 player on my board. I genuinely hope that he gets back to where he was supposed to be because this guy was a top 32 player for the majority of the year. And I just kept holding on, hoping to God to see that bounce back. And he had a 197-yard game or something like that. And I'm like, oh, yes, you're back. And then he went back. So I'm praying for him. I mean, obviously, I really want him to succeed. This is a guy who I fell in love with early on. And I'm hoping that he ends up being as good as I thought he was. Dylan McMahon goes to the Panthers. One of the players I just didn't really vibe with the first time I saw him, but there's some good centers in this class. Pick number 113, the Ravens going Jalen McMillan. This is proper value for him. I think he actually replaced the Odell role very, very well. This is a pretty top tier pick. Jaguars go Blake Fisher at 114. Is he top 40? He's at 43. So whoop-de-doo. He's my number 43 player in the class. Great value for him. Pick 115, the Bengals go Elijah Jones. He's a feisty corner out of BC. He's a fun one to watch. Just never got a full grade on him, hence why he never got factored into that list, just like DeCamerion Richardson. But DeCamerion did end up getting his grade. But BC didn't have enough all-22 tape from the sources that I use for me to feel comfortable giving Elijah Jones a grade. And when I don't feel good enough to give you guys a grade, I'm not going to put out a grade. At the very minimum, I could be honest about that. Malik Washington goes to the Jaguars at 116. I'm one of those players who I did not end up really loving through my tape study of his. But at 116, it just randomly appears that, everybody seems to love Malik Washington, but when they mock him, he always slips to day 3. It's because people love him as a day 3 guy. When I say I don't like him, it's because I don't like him as a day 2 guy. It's fine to be in day 3. So that's the difference. When I criticize somebody, it's because I'm looking at them as a potential to start on a team. Because what's the point of having backups that shouldn't at least be starter quality? That's my thought process. But at 116, this is a solid move. I don't know about it for the Jaguars, though. You got Devin Duvernay on the team. Who else do you guys have? You have Gabe Davis. Like, you also, I'm tripping up. There's another wide receiver that y'all got that's actually pretty damn good after the catch. I feel like you have this role really solidified. Like, oh, Parker Washington. I don't even, like, one of the guys you drafted last year. Like, Parker Washington has a very similar role in the future to Malik Washington. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Like, you're pretty much overpopulating one role. Bears getting Chris Braswell at 117 is incredible. So they ended up getting that out of that trade as well. Chris Braswell at 117 is, he's not that bad. I mean, I like Chris Braswell much more than that suggests. Gabriel Murphy goes to the Seahawks, 118. The weird thing is, I do sense some realism in here because, yes, we do see some dumb picks, but the NFL makes some dumb picks. And that's me giving Chad Reuter some credit here, right? But Gabriel Murphy going to the Seahawks, I think that's perfectly fine. You want to get some extra edge rush rotation in there. By all means, I'm never going to shame a team for doing that. I do think they need to go after a linebacker, but they did earlier. Pick 119, the Steelers go Renardo Green. He's a top 33 player on my board, baby, maybe 34. Whoop-de-doo. Like, that's a great move in my book. Eagles go Brendan Rice at 120. I'm a fan of this one. I think he'd be a great choice. His top 30 visit, though, I think got canceled, so I don't know what that was all about. But Brendan Rice, he is a top 64 player on my board. I think he has a ceiling for being a true starter on an every down basis. So that's just me, but he has the intricacies down in the game, and that's what matters the most to me. He actually is a solid route runner as well. He just didn't generate separation because I think over the offseason he worked on his overall top speed. And, he does have a lot of the traits that I am looking for in a top-tier wide receiver. Good blocker as well. So that's going to be a big plus there in Philly. Pick 121, the Broncos go Luke McCaffrey. High ceiling player. Obviously, McCaffrey ended up playing back in Denver. I think his dad ended up playing for the Broncos. Did he? I'm tripping. I don't know why I thought that. I'm tripping. Feel free to fact check me on that. That is definitely not something I'm going to put my name down on. For some reason, I thought McCaffrey played for the Broncos, but I think I'm tripping balls on that one. But regardless, Luke McCaffrey's a fun wide receiver. I just didn't really fall in love with his tape, but there's certainly a highlight reel tape is fun. Bears go Javon Foster at 122. So the Bears essentially got multiple starters at every single pick. I think they got a starter. So the Bears are killing it in the draft. Good for them. Pick 123. The Texans go Leonard Taylor III. To be fair, I do think the Bears should have went after a wide receiver, but at least they got every other position knocked down. But the Texans go Leonard Taylor. At this point, I trust Leonard Taylor to come off the board and be a good pick. Of course, a USC safety is going to ball out for San Francisco. Keelan Bullock is my true number one safety, but I do have Cole Bishop as somebody who threatens that. But they also play different roles. So Keelan Bullock, this is an incredible value for the Niners. The Buccaneers then go Javon Baker. This is a really good developmental wide receiver, just not enough UCF all 22 tape out there for me to feel comfortable giving him a full grade. Then we got Miles Cole to the Packers. Awful 3-cone as well as his agility drills were atrocious, but almost 37-inch arms, maybe even almost 38. Long ass arms. Big dude, tested well everywhere else except for his flexibility. It does feel like a Green Bay Packers thing to do, but I would say do it later. Curtis Jacobs is fantastic linebacker. He's my number 65 player on my board. But of course, my linebackers are getting updated and shifted quite a bit as my tastes and my grading scale for them change, because I do think linebacker athleticism now matters more than ever because the NFL has gotten faster and faster and faster, and these slow linebackers, I just don't think cut it. The Bills end up going Mekhi Wingo at 128. Not a bad move. I mean, he's a high upside player, just low on the weight, like sub 300, relatively shorter arms, but he's a good athlete and he moves really, really fluidly. The Vikings doing Christian Mahogany is so fun. I think he's going to be a potential starting right guard, but one of the lowest IQ players I've ever seen while he plays, like genuine deer in headlights looks quite a bit, but man, you cannot move this guy off of his spot. Great anchor and unbelievable power. So, big fan of that. Jalen Harold for the Ravens is a bit early. I didn't fall in love with his tape, but a lot of offensive tackles gave up a lot of pressures to Michigan. So, I mean, there is a reason for that. DeCamerion Richardson goes to the Chiefs. I have a feeling if he ends up going to Kansas City, he ends up being an absolute steal and a top-tier corner in the NFL. He is a great athlete who has flashes of excellence. He's my corner 17 at the moment as well. So this is really solid value for him. I don't think I've even factored him into my overall big board because I end up doing the side stuff before making the big stuff. That's what you should do. But DeCamerion Richardson's a great player. He's like, I think this would end up being one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. And, even though I have him ranked at 17, post-draft, I think I'd have him ranked probably top 5. Pick number 132, the Niners go Audric Estime. They always go after a running back, and at this point, getting a great contact balance back, not a bad idea. Bills go a Deflon Ulufosho at 133. Really high floor linebacker, just, you're looking at someone who had a lengthy injury history. 134, the Jets go Tommy Eichenberg. Super high floor player as well. Just nothing really exciting about Tommy, but he did end up having an 80 grade for me last year coming into the draft, so he just had a random drop off this year. Niners getting Jared Wiley seems to be a constant in a lot of mock drafts, and I'm all here for it. They do need to get a contingency plan for George Kittle, and he is a great option for it. McKinley Jackson goes at 136 to Denver. I think this is just going BPA, man. This is a great player who has good size, 325, and he's honestly a really solid athlete for that great first step. He's a gap penetrator that's very fun to watch. New England Patriots then go Cornelius Johnson. Worth taking a swing on. He ended up surprising a lot of people at the Shrine. Pick 138, the Giants go Bo Braid. Again, you're taking a swing on a safety. Ended up losing Xavier McKinney. I'm not going to shame him too much here. Bo Braid's solid value. Commanders go Bucky Irving at 139. Tested out horribly, but his play is fantastic. I debated putting him as my RB1, but I've always seen that top end speed being very limited. I just didn't know that the rest of the scores would also be that poor. Jalen Ford then goes to the Chargers at 140. Great value for a position that needs a lot of help. Dominique Hampton ends up going to the Carolina Panthers to be their longer term option at safety at over 220 pounds. Not a bad idea to take him early. And then they take Kyrie Jackson, who's 6'4", 200 pounds. So taking some very, very good measurable very, very good measurable defensive backs at 141 and 142. Kyrie Jackson's an enforcer. He's just a little bit on the older side. Brady McGregor goes to the Falcons. I don't think he's good enough to really elevate the edge core. So it does kind of worry me a little bit. I'd be going maybe for some extra safety rotation at this point because I do like Malik Mustafa quite a bit. The Bills end up going Malik here at 144. He's a high ceiling player, good tackler. Obviously that franchise guy has him as a safety number 1. We'll see about that. Pick number 145, the Broncos go Miles Harden. Without the injury history, this would be totally worth it, but he does have a pretty sketchy injury history. Titans go Tyler Davis at 146. Just kind of somebody who is not very awe-inspiring. I don't know if he's going to be drafted this high, but not a bad player. Broncos end up taking Walter Rouse, who was the starting left tackle for Oklahoma last year, former Stanford guy. Also could be kicked into guard. It's just good BPA, good risk management, so to speak. Panthers end up going Jackson Sermon. I'm going to be honest, I did not study him. But Panthers getting linebacker, never going to shame it. Never going to shame it. Pick number 149, the Bengals go Xavier Thomas, who is a top 64 player. How high is he? He's top 50 on my board. So, pairing him back up there with Miles Murphy would be a A+ move in my opinion because you're just getting BPA. Kalen Carson's a top 40 player as well, unless I put him at 41, which I think he's at 40. He's at 40. That's obviously great value for someone who's a high IQ zone corner. Blake Watson did not even get a combine invite, but he goes to the Colts at 151. I think there might be some better running backs available, but he is fun to watch. He's very elusive, good vision as well. Commanders go Dom Pooney at 152. He's very versatile, can play a lot of positions. I just don't really appreciate his game. One of the things that bothered me the most was him essentially disregarding any form of offensive line mechanics to make sure he doesn't get beat by speed. Like he would start he would start here, right? The defender starts here. The defender starts going this way. He, rather than going like slide right here, he will start running like this and then start running like that. You gotta stay square to the target, and he just does not do that. And then, not to mention the fact that you're not even remaining in a strong base. Just defensive interiors could definitely feast on that. And 152, it's worth taking the swing, but I have to bring that up. Hunter Norzad is an absolute animal. He is right there at the top of your screen, or not the top of your screen, but the top of my board at 50. What is it, 52 on my board? Yeah, he's fantastic. Again, go to that interior offensive line video for more in-depth information on him. Dylan Laube and Will Riker go 154, 155. Already made my piece about the kickers, but I just don't. I love Dylan's overall energy, his vibe. He's someone who, just like Cody Schrader, finishes off the run by just running to the end zone, even though he doesn't need to. Like during practice, he gives it his all. That's awesome. But I just don't know if he empirically will end up being a big impact in the NFL. Beanie Bishop going to the Browns this early. I'm going to be honest, I did not study the West Virginia corners. So I do think corner is not a bad idea for the Browns with so many contracts that are going to be coming up. And especially because they do a good job at having good corners on their team. It's going to be very expensive. Vikings then go Jayden Crumedy. He has a lot of top 30 visits, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see where he ends up going. But this is solid value. I love the floor that Mississippi State gives their guys. Dolphins end up going Gabe Hall at 158. One of the more underrated defensive interiors in the class. At the Senior Bowl, he was one of the guys who can get instant wins, which is very, very tough to do. Tyron Hopper then goes to the Chiefs. They go back to Missouri to get a nice pass rushing upside, but also really, really fast linebacker. I'm all down for that. The Bills go Cody Schrader. Just talked about him. It's pretty much the same exact thing as Dylan Laube, but when you watch Cody play, it's awesome because he's a stat patter, right? He gets a lot of stats. He will get like those 200-yard games easy. But when you watch it play, I don't see it fully translating, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. The Eagles then go Kalen King, versatile defensive back piece. I think this is fine. There's something that happened, and I don't know what it is, but the fall off for Kalen King should be studied. People get all grouchy when I take him still in like the top 140, but I mean, the fact is he was a first-round quality player from his tape just a little bit over a year ago. I mean, literally a year ago, he'd be in first-round mocks. Like half a year ago, he would still be probably in first-round mocks. So don't give me that BS as in like, oh, he's been like, this is like crazy. But no, it's less than a year ago. We were talking about this guy as a legit first-round player based on his true tape. Ryan Flournoy then goes to the Cardinals. This is really good value. I think he's top 100 or he's really close to it. Ryan Flournoy is, I saw his name pop up. Man, I already lost him, but he's at 117. I really loved his tape based on those one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl again. There's no Southeast Missouri State All-22 that I've seen. So that's why he doesn't have an official grade. But, the tape I've seen, I really do like. Cedric Van Pran goes to the Bills at 163. He's better than some of the other offensive tiers that were selected already. Denia Smith going to the Lions based on the new rules for the kickoffs. He has even more value. I'm perfectly fine with that, especially the hip drop tackles too. Very excited to see how dynamic and how much of an asset Denia Smith will be. Isaiah Adams goes to the Ravens, one of my favorite fits for him. He's a tackle/guard hybrid. He played pretty much every other position, so good for him. Giants then go Justin Obuigbe, 290, solid player. Nothing that's going to drop your socks, or knock your socks off. I guess that's the right term. But he's he's some extra defensive line depth. That's cool. Shaw Smith-Wade actually has some really good tape, and at the Senior Bowl, he did a fantastic job. He's going to be one of my sleepers, and he goes to the Vikings at 167. Saints go Jaheim Bell. I think that's great for, I'm forgetting who it is. Gary, is it Clint Kubiak? Kubiak. He's going to love Jaheim Bell. He's probably going to look to add another tight end, so certainly going to be down for that. The Packers go Ray Davis. He's a feisty dude. His ceiling's incredible. Versus LSU, I think it was last year, he ended up playing so phenomenally that I started writing about Ray Davis rather than the player I was watching. So keep that in mind. Nathaniel Watson's a talented linebacker at Mississippi State. I think at 170, it's fine to take him for the Saints. Eagles end up going Anthony Gold and Dallin Holker. At 172, that's good value for Holker. He's the guy who ended up catching 2 balls in his gauntlet drill. That was fun. 2 balls at once. Then you got Anthony Gold as well. It's going to be that kick returner guy. You're essentially going to be kicking out Boston Scott most likely. Maybe. I don't know. But Anthony Gold does have more value because of those new rules. Christian Jones goes to the Chiefs. I think that's fine. He's a confirmed day 3 guy for me, and he can play both left and right tackle if need be, but essentially you're just getting him for depth. Matt Goncalves, goes to the Cowboys here at 174. He's a fun player to watch. Some people even think he should kick into guard, and just really good depth. And his high floor play is great. He's a solid athlete too. Just had a season-ending injury that sucks because it ended off pretty damn early. You got the Saints going Javion Cohen. I ended up breaking him down in yesterday's video a little bit more, but just somebody who really underwhelmed me, but good size, good floor technically because he has Alabama training, but has some things to tweak for sure. Niners end up going Caden Wallace, who is a top. Did I end up moving him up in my top 50? He's right around it. Yeah, he's actually at number 50 on my board. So the Niners end up getting a kick-ass right tackle, who I think would be a great right guard. And let's finish this off with round 6 and 7. Cowing to the Vikings, another one of my favorite players in the class. Just ended up underwhelming a little bit this year, but he was actually a top 50 player for the majority of the year. Jalen Simpson's is a really solid safety. The Steelers are getting him at 178. I'm perfectly fine with that value. Joe Milton is somebody who I still believe in a lot. I'm like the last person on the Joe Milton train, which means that there's probably no more momentum, but it is what it is. He's a talented guy who has a big arm and has just not worked on his mechanics properly enough, was in a system that didn't value overall processing. So that's what sucks the most. But 179, I'd take him in a heartbeat. You got the New England Patriots going Jonah Ellis. He should go much earlier than this. He ended up having a torn labrum, if I'm not mistaken, to end off his Utah career. So that might be the reason why he falls at this point, is for injury concerns. We'll see what happens with that. Tip Ryman to the Chargers. The Chargers, if I'm not mistaken, brought on a couple tight ends in the offseason. I don't really see Tip competing with those tight ends. I think that you'd have to get a true tight end one in order to make it valuable enough for the Chargers. Jordan McGee goes to the Titans. He has some really high ceiling tape. I could totally see him going to Philly since he played there in Temple. And Philly loves their athletic linebackers that are not on days 1 or 2, or rounds 1 or 2. DeAndre Prince goes to the Giants. I actually, for some reason, my gut said this is going to be the pick. I don't know why, but maybe we'll see if I'm Nostradamus with that. I could totally see DeAndre going to the Giants. I just didn't see really any Mississippi defenders that blew my socks off. Dolphins go Javon Solomon. He ended up slipping here because he's undersized, but he's a fun player. Has a cool dog too. You can check out that. I think it was Kay Adams who had him on there. New York Jets going Jordan Travis. I don't really feel like he'd work in that system, but you might as well take a swing at 185. Cardinals go Darius Muaso. At 186, you might as well get some linebacker depth. Rasheen Ali to the Falcons, one of the teams I don't think should take a running back in this class. It's a relatively not deep class. If you're going to take one, go Isaac Guerendo, like the Texans do here, who's an absolute freak. Not Rasheen Ali, but the Texans get Guerendo as well as ZTF, Zion Tupuola Fatui. At 188, 189, both players with really high ceilings, Zion especially. But Isaac Guerendo, he was an RBBC, but tested out phenomenally at the Combine. I'm fine with that. Dwayne Carter, great bull rush. Saints could definitely use defensive interior. I doubt he'd be here at 190. 191, the Colts go Javonte Jean-Baptiste. They have enough guys who are role players in the edge core. You need to go after an edge one, or else it's not really worth it. Seahawks then go Easton Gibbs. Did not study the Wyoming defense this year, so TBD on that. Cam Allen, Purdue safety. I love Purdue players. Knowing the Patriots, knowing what they used to do under Bill, this would be something I could see them doing, but I did not study Cam Allen. Trey Knox is actually, he runs routes better than the majority of the tight ends in this class. For the Bengals, he actually might be a steal, just not, his hands are very unreliable. Steelers end up going Marcus Harris. He gave some problems for many offensive linemen. I'm not mistaken, Bo Limmer's majority of his pressures came from facing Marcus Harris. So, interesting fact on that. Rams ended up going Keaton Oladapo. He's a very solid safety. Probably stick to the 53. Falcons get a talented but very raw offensive tackle in Garrett Greenfield, who tested out through the roof at the Combine. Trevor Keegan to the Dolphins. High floor, high IQ guard. I love that for them. That's a great pick for them, who could even potentially start. Saints end up going Austin Reed. I never thought he was special, but, Western Kentucky can produce some guys who could step in if need be for a game. Bills end up going Daquan Hardy. Not a bad corner. He just didn't really surprise me at all at Penn State, but the Bills getting a role player, never going to be a bad idea at 200. Lions going to MJ Devonshire, same exact spiel as Daquan Hardy. Don't really think they're going to start in the NFL ever, but you're just getting a good depth player. Jaquan Jackson out of Tulane. For the Packers here at 202, right up their alley. He's actually a really fun player to watch who I think could end up sticking to a 53. He's pretty damn dynamic, and he almost killed me at the Senior Bowl by when he went out of bounds, so that's pretty entertaining as well. A.J. Barner's a great blocker, so the Broncos get a good one here who can help out immediately in the run game. Bills end up going Casey Washington, who tested out very, very poorly. If I'm not mistaken, is this the guy who I'm thinking of? No, I think his name's Isaiah Williams. I don't think Isaiah Williams should be going after Casey Washington. To be honest, this is a weird pick for me, but the Bills end up getting some extra receiver help. Never a bad idea. But the Lions go Sion Vaki here, who would be probably going higher as a running back, but decided to say he's more of a safety. High motor dude. Love that for him. CJ Hansen, love getting some love for Holy Cross, going as a guard to the Browns. It is what it is. Tyrone Tracy ended up having more career receiving yards than the majority of the guys who are going in the first as a receiver, but he's a good running back that has actually some pretty good blocking skills as well. He's just a little bit older. Mike Edwards out of Campbell University. Y'all know I didn't study Campbell University in all 22, so I don't know enough about Mike Edwards to give you an informed opinion. Rams ended up going Taj Washington, who, especially with the new kickoff rules, could end up even playing a big role in that. That's a good pick. Frank Crum is an athletic offensive lineman out of Wyoming. The Eagles certainly feel like a spot that could be a great breeding ground for his development. Jarrett Kingston, the whole entire USC offensive line was asked. You never really got to see Jarrett be his full self, so I'm excited to see what he could do there in San Francisco. Millard Bradford, I never really saw him pop off, but to be fair, I never studied him in all 22, so TBD on that. But safety for the Jaguars, not a bad idea to get depth there. Casey Rogers, honestly, he had some flashes. Wouldn't mind him for the Rams, but I don't think he's going to actually make the roster. Bengals end up going Jarvis Brownlee, who is now a number 41 player on my board. So we love that quite a bit. Niners end up going DJ James, who's just a little bit undersized, but I think his talent is probably even better than what we saw earlier, Nehemiah Pritchett. So good steal for the Niners. Cowboys go Trajan Jeffcoat. It's 216. It's worth taking a swing on an edge rusher. Josh Newton goes to the Rams, pairing back up with Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, who they drafted last year. Quantez Stiggers goes to the Ravens. Fun player from the CFL. And, that's good value for him. He showed out at the Shrine. Torrey Taylor, again, I don't really fully believe in drafting punters and kickers, but punters feel like more of a draftable talent. Torrey Taylor's a good player. Akeem Dent, I love Florida State defensive backs. I'm willing to take them 10 out of 10 times. And then we finish this off with round number 7. So, Chiefs end up going Bo Limmer. This is proper value for Bo. I would probably take him as high as 200, maybe a little bit even higher. He had a really off year as a center. He just did. I did not even know Storm Duck was coming out in this draft, but this dude's had a climactic downfall. He went to Louisville to be closer to family, though, if I'm not mistaken, or to his kid. I remember that was the main reason he transferred there. Supposed to be at Penn State, but decided not to. You're taking a swing on somebody who was potentially a day 2 pick at the start of this year. Gottlieb Daze, I don't know. I'm not saying that name correctly, but athletic guard out of Maryland, tested out well at the combine. Kendall Milton for the Bengals. He's not a bad running back either. Got to see him there in Mobile. I just don't think the Bengals need to be taking depth at running back. If you want to take a true running back, go for somebody who's going to be a starter. I think they have a lot of role players already. Logan Lee's a fun, athletic defensive interior out of Iowa. I know that, I think that Michigan played him this past year. So if this is the case, then I would see that there's a potential plan for Logan Lee to start in the future. Eric All, if healthy, would have been a top 100 player on most people's boards. One of the good route runners of the class as well. The Cardinals get themselves a good one there. Tanner McLaughlin, former wide receiver out of Arizona. He's at tight end now, so that's going to be intriguing to see how he replaces Harrison Bryant's role for the future. Baltimore Ravens go Fabian Lovett. I think that he's just a depth guy. Jontrey Hunter, linebacker, going to the Raiders at 229. Again, you're taking swings on some players. Out of Georgia State, they have a sick uniform, so I'm sure that they probably got enamored with that if they take him. Iyabi Okianoma, former Michigan, but now Charlotte edge rusher. At 230, the ceiling's worth taking the swing. He is a little bit older, though. Patriots then going Austin Jones, backup running back out of USC. Don't think he was draftable, but excited to give him some love. Tylen Grable was a really, really athletic offensive lineman out of UCF. Just never studied UCF in all 22 because there's just not much of it. But Love taking swings on offensive linemen, especially when they are athletic. Jordan Jefferson goes to the Cowboys. He's a fun one. Ended up getting absolutely yeeted by Christian Haynes over at the Senior Bowl. So I think that he's worth probably a 5th round pick. Tyrese Knight, he's a good linebacker as well. Colts get a steal in 234. Seahawks end up going McAllen Castles. Did not watch him, and I like Tennessee too. But tight ends are not super heavily featured, but you essentially pair him back up with Joe Milton, which is cool. Carlton Johnson out of Fresno State, or Carlton Johnson, excuse me. You're taking some depth at corner. That's fine with me. Bucky Williams, I just think there's better offensive guards available, but taking a swing on offensive line, never a bad thing. Speaking of Isaiah Williams, here he goes to the Texans. Fun player, just tested out poorly, and it's not great measurables. Pick 239, the Saints go Sundiata Anderson. Based on the fact that I said that name that way, you should know that I just don't have a great opinion, or a very valid opinion on Sundiata. But Carolina Panthers go Deshaun McCarthy. Do you think I watched East Stroudsburg State? No. So I'm hoping that he's good. Wishing the best for him. Jarius Monroe, talented corner out of Tulane. I mean, I think that he could actually potentially stick to a practice squad or maybe even to the end of the 53. At 241, that's worth it. Kingsley Aguakun has a great motor. He'd be a good backup there for the Titans as, Lloyd Cushenberry takes over. Keith Randolph Jr. goes to the Browns. I think that, I would be willing to take him at 143. Good pick there for the Browns. Willie Drew, he's had some, he's in solid corner at 244. You're asking for depth. Packers steal Drake Nugent, who's my number 19 interior offensive lineman, so good for them. They've got some good ones. Jalen Sundle, fun left tackle who's a transition to center. Would love to see how he develops under Sua Opeta there in Tampa. Texans go Omar Brown. Not a bad safety going to the Texans. It's 247. KT Levelston, he's he was awful as a left tackle, but hopefully he gets better as a guard going to the Bills at 248. Nathan Thomas, I love Louisiana players. I'm always willing to take a swing on him, going to the Lions at 249. And then Maurice Liufau going to the Ravens at 250. He's a guy who's arguably top 100. Niners go Winston Reed. Did not study Weber State, but I would be scared of the Niners taking any linebackers because they usually do a good job at it. Keelan Robinson's a good back, very underrated. Going to the Titans, I think he could even carve out some snaps and maybe some carries for himself. And then we got the Chargers going Xavier Weaver, who's a bit underrated out of Colorado. And then we got the Rams going Devin Leary, who I think would be willing to go at 154. So good for them getting a good contingency plan. Packers get Keaton Slovis at 255, who to me is very Brock Purdy-esque. I do like his game a lot. There's just the inconsistencies are there. The injury history is there. The success is not. Then we got Devin Culp and Micah Abraham to end off the draft to the Jets. Devin Culp, former wide receiver, very light, tested out very, very well. And then Micah Abraham, I love taking Marshall DBs, so I'm fine with that. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love y'all. See you on the far side.